Hey there, everybody. Draken here. This is just gonna be a short little video that I'm going to be making here, and I might be making more of these in the future. I play a lot of Pathfinder, and it's the 1E version, like the older school one, and that's mostly just because most of the people I know play it, so that's the version we're always kind of playing. And I wanted to kind of just start going over some of the spells that we use a lot of. I mean, invisibility isn't anything new. That's a pretty strong spell that pretty much most parties and campaigns will have used. But I just kind of wanted to go over like the unique, maybe not super unique, but an interesting way some of the people I've played with have used it. And one of the big things to note about the 1E version here is that it says a target or creature or object weighing no more than 100 pounds per level. So the bigger thing that you normally don't see is the objects. You normally don't have like your parties thinking of using invisibility on items or certain objects, but that can be a very strong tool that people aren't using it for. For instance, in one of the campaigns that my friend's a part of, they were stopped by a really strong door. There was no lockpick on it. There was no way to open it. And it was a strong door, sure, but it didn't weigh more than, 700 pounds, which is what the level they were at the time. So what my friend did is he touched the door, he made the door invisible, and he saw straight down the hallway and was like, okay, now I use Dimension Door to move through it. Because with Dimension Door, you need to see where you're going, but if you can see past whatever barrier is stopping you, you can just teleport to the other side. And that's exactly what he did. And the DM was pretty impressed by that move because obviously he had a whole side plan set up where they had to go find a different path to get through the door. But that's one of the ways you don't normally see this spell being used. Most people use it on themselves, just on their person. But some of the other interesting ways you can do it is obviously it doesn't last a huge amount of time, just a minute per level. But if you're running away from some pursuers and they can't see, when you go around a corner or just lose sight of you for a little bit, and then there's a barricade or there's some kind of a fence or something in the way that you have to jump over. As you're jumping over it, you can cast this spell, make it invisible, and then the people following behind you all of a sudden will collide with whatever this invisible thing is, right? Because they won't have been able to tell that there is anything there, and so wouldn't be able to avoid it. And that might allow you to, escape a little chase scene by using this spell in a little bit of a different way than you normally would. And I think it's just a neat spell that normally only gets attention for making yourself invisible. Of course, when you are invisible, you can still do a lot of actions without breaking your stealth. It even explains it all here in the 1E version. All this, spells such as Bless that specifically affect allies, but not foes, are not attacks for the purpose. They still don't break your stealth, so you can, if you're a cleric, you make yourself invisible, stand in the middle of a fight, bless people, channel energy, heal everybody. Still doesn't break. With the sorcerer I'm playing right now, I have a lot of summoning spells that just summon little creatures, and they just drop into the battlefield and run around, do chaos. Oh, okay, that song got a little better. Kind of just put on some lo-fi music. Something. Because I didn't want to be talking into the void. But Yeah, my sorcerer in Pathfinder right now, he uses invisibility or hides in fog clouds and just summons creatures onto the battlefield, or does spells that don't directly harm enemies and supports allies. And for the most part, it works really good. Of course, you're going to run into things later on with see invisibility or blind sense, tremor sense. There are ways for things to still see you, but it is still a very powerful spell that can be used in a lot of different ways. And I figured I would look at the second edition version as well. And the second edition one is a lot more bare bones. It's just one creature, 10-minute duration, range of touch, and then it just makes them hidden. Doesn't explain a huge amount more on that, but anything not hostile doesn't trigger it. So that one is pretty much the standard one I normally see. How that's used in Pathfinder 1E is I normally just see that. But I noticed 2E does have a separate invisible item one, which I think is actually even more broken or more usable than the 1E's version, because 1E's version gives it a weight limit per level, whereas Pathfinder the 2, it just says one object, range of touch, make the object invisible. And I don't think it says anything about the size. I'm just going to reread it quickly here. I thought it was really silly that it didn't specify a size. No, it gives an example about, like, oh, if you have an invisible weapon and you hit an enemy with it, the weapon becomes visible again. But you see, the issue with this one is it's one object. What constitutes as an object, right? Because if you think about it, plate mail is one object, even though it's made up of multiple things. So then, would a house be considered an object? How about a castle? How big can you get with an object before it starts becoming a little too silly? I mean, obviously, a house for a first level spell, that's pretty ridiculous, but it doesn't specifically say. Maybe it does. No, I think this is pulled directly out of the books, so unless I'm wrong about that. This one does not have a specific limit set up to it. So your GM, of course, at the end of the day is going to have all say on the matter, but realistically, I think this one from the 1E version is actually more grounded. Just because it has the weight limit per level. Still, 100 pounds of weight is quite a bit. Like, it's a pretty big amount. Like, if you know people are coming after you, you can set up quite a bit of preparation. Because there's also a lot of next time I think I'm going to pre-listen to the copyright sounds when I'm making the video. Where was I? Kind of lost my track there. Yes, so what I was thinking is what exactly constitutes a object, a single object? Is a single object a bridge? Is a single object, a fence? Because technically, yes, that would be a single object. So if you set up, say, I don't know, a barricade of one continuous, string of wood, or sharp objects, or whatever kind of trap you set up, and you make it a continuous thing that doesn't weigh over your level limit of weight, and then when you hear enemies approaching, you touch it, you make it invisible. With this one, actually, I would even say Well, for this, it does say if it's used as part of a hostile action, it does break invisibility. It doesn't quite say that an object doing a hostile action in the first one here would break invisibility. But I would, using common sense, say that if you set up an invisible trap and the enemy gets hit by the trap, it would probably pop its invisibility. Then again, that's up to your DM to decide. Still, I think there's a lot of utility that this spell just doesn't get used for, even though it's probably one of the most well-known spells. Like, almost everyone who is a caster knows about invisibility. It's such a used spell. I've rarely seen it used in a situation where it's making other things other than the player invisible. Because there are a lot of interesting uses you could have set up for it. And since it can be made permanent, with a permanency spell in the older version anyways, I don't know if they have permanency in the new version. I've not played any of that. But you could have quite a few interesting invisible objects in an area, especially if it was like a sorcerer or a wizard's keep. You could have a lot of traps that are set up just with invisibility. And it would make it a lot harder to detect. Even with trap binding, if the trap is, completely invisible. There is, of course, detect magic, which would probably reveal an aura of invisibility, so there are ways around it. But most people aren't walking around, well, unless they're a player character, they aren't walking around 24/7 with detect magic up. Sometimes player characters don't even realize that they should have it on. So, yeah, I probably talked too long about that one. I'll try to get these to be more... Well, actually 12 minutes, that wasn't even that long. I think I covered most of the things I wanted to hit on the invisibility spell. But I'm still blown away by the fact that this does not say a weight limit. Maybe it's... No, it doesn't say that. I imagine this probably has a lot of DMs, like, saying just, like, outright, like, no, you can't pick that as an object to the players all the time. The amount of things you could pick, and it's a long duration. 1 hour is quite a long time. Because, I mean, one of the funny things you could do is you could just as, like, kind of a prank to somebody, is you could have a big hole with a pit, and then all you have to do is a couple feet away from the hole have like a trip line or, just a small barricade that's invisible, so that when they run to go and run and jump, they're just going to trip right over that and go straight into the spiked pit or hole. Like, there's so many times like this kind of a spell would be useful in just setting up traps. But you don't really, well, at least I haven't in my campaigns seen that used that way. Which could be a useful or interesting and funny way to use it. Anyways, I'm gonna cut that video off here. This will be my first one of these. I'll probably go over a lot of other spells that I've used a lot in Pathfinder, as well as, just interesting spells and spell uses. At least ones that me and the people I've played Pathfinder with have found interesting. And I'll try to take a look at like the Pathfinder 2, because at some point I might switch over to the 2e, and I know I would definitely take this one immediately, this spell, to use in so many silly situations. It immediately in combat could have some uses. But it would more be just for interesting effects or cast time 2 actions, material and semantic. Yeah, I don't even know what that means because I have not played that version yet. But normal one's only 1 standard action. So that's not even that long of a time. That's 3 seconds. It's less than 3 seconds. 3 seconds is a full round action. So you can cast that pretty fast. So, you know, you're running away from somebody. They're coming after you. You open a door, make it invisible, you shut it. Even people who know where the handle is on a door, you know, if it's... I guess most doors back in most Pathfinder settings would probably be a push or a pull. Still, if you swing a door open, all the way open, and it's not quite in their line of sight, and you make it invisible and you quickly shut it, in the heat of the moment, they probably wouldn't even know that you shut a door on them until they go and run right into it. Still, I was thinking of like doors with doorknobs that you know, spin and turn. I guess they would still have those. They'd just be different settings, different types. Probably like a lever system. So if they have those kind of doors, you can, you know, shut those, and then it would probably take a couple seconds for someone to fumble around and find it if they aren't, you know, lucky. So lots of utility use for this spell. That it would be just kind of interesting to see that more and more. But that is the end. Okay, I'm done. It's already long enough talking. Next time I'm gonna find a better playlist.